All right, welcome and welcome back. Thank you for joining. We are doing Don chapter reviews and breakdowns, or whatever I call this, on the channel. This one being the first one that we are going to do, and with that comes a disclaimer of me reading off scripts and doing them in a structure type of setting. So hopefully that's okay, but we'll go ahead and jump into the chapter. With chapter 238, this picks up right after the intense Spinosaurus chase in 237. Momo's been out there surviving dinosaur kaiju nonsense in this wild park slash diorama battle zone, and the squad's finally linking up. So we got Okarun and Ira and Momo together, with Gigi still MIA, but not forgotten, even though we really don't like him right now. But this chapter having that pure energy from Yukinobu Tatsu with his romance tension exploding, the rescue ops, new threats rolling in, and that signature mix of heartfelt moments with the over the top supernatural brawls. It's short and dense, just like most chapters are, very quick, very to the point. Classic weekly shonen pacing, especially for Dandadan, that leaves most people wanting with those cliffhangers and the way that the fights end up going. Now, moving on to the pacing and structure of the chapter. We always start off with the pacing, and for Dandadan with Yukinobu Tatsu, the pacing is always tight and very cinematic. It opens up with the immediate aftermath of the dino rescue, Okarun enlarging the Oni Club for big slashes, Ira using acrobatic silky hair and to restrain the beast. Obviously, with Dandadan and most of the series that I do, I've mentioned in most other videos, is that we don't really see a lot of filler. Straight into emotional payoff, especially for this chapter alone. Then we'll move on to the structure and say it flows very beautifully in this chapter. We have the rescue and the reunion. Then it moves on to the heavy confession and the character beats. Then we move to the group strategy talk. Then finally get into the escalating threat with that cliffhanger on the end. It's not breakneck action the whole way. Tatsu ends up slowing down with the romance and the decision core, then ramps it right back up with the Dragon Knights. Feels like a perfect bridge chapter that advances multiple threads without dragging, which seems to be a theme for how Dandadan chapters go. Next, we will move to the character components that we can draw from this chapter. And in this chapter shines the brightest on the character side. Okarun steps up huge. He's the one who pushed to search for Momo after disobeying what the Yatagarasu had said, showing that unbreakable dedication that he has for Momo. Even without full powers from Turbo Granny, he's out here performing, slashing dinos, and making decisive moves. The big moment of the chapter is when he just confesses to Ira that he loves Momo, which is something that he did say to Momo, but hasn't gotten that answer back, but really hasn't said that at all since, because ever since he had said that, Momo has lost her memories or been small and wanted to wait until she could be the right size to properly say what she wanted to say. But this is a big step for Okarun to be able to say that, especially to somebody else. Even if it is not to Momo at this point, but we're finally having that awareness to show Ira, hey, it's not going to go anywhere with us, and we need to move on. And even though she ends up taking it very, very well, she ends up being very mature about it, which is very nice to see. So no hedging. He has pure honesty whenever he comes to say that to her, and it's growth from that awkward, cursed kid we had met earlier. Moving to Ira, and she gets that major rejection, but she does get a lot of respect. She's clearly got feelings, hears the confession, and gets heartbroken, but handles it maturely, like I'd said. She admits her own love, but commits to the team and helping rescue their friends. So very, very good behavior and very mature on her part, pain into purpose. Momo is still dealing with the amnesia, but shows her core personality. Very quick, she's very tough, and she's a bit oblivious at times, shocked when Ira has yokai powers now, even though she can now perceive them, so her powers are coming back in the awareness in some way. The trio dynamic feels stronger than ever. Gigi's mentioned as likely alive in the Bronchiosaurus stomach, so with that classic Dandadan absurdity, we can see Ira and Okarun, once they meet up with Momo, talking about the back and forth between what could possibly be going on with Gigi. We also get teases of broader forces, new Dragon Knights. So we have the Clown Knight, Count Cagliostro, I believe his name is. We have the Gem Knight, and we have, etc. with them, especially the ones that were fighting with Okarun and the Yatagarasu whenever he took over. Debuting alongside Hase, which is another person who had been fighting Okarun and Kinta earlier with the alien that had one of those suits. So it looks like Count Saint Germain or the Dragon Knights had given him some powers to be able to work alongside them, because they know that he's going to be an asset with what his feelings are towards Okarun. So he's going to be debuting and gunning for Okaroon. Red Baron's rolling up in a bike. So that was an interesting or a last page update there for that. We'll see what happens in the next chapter or upcoming ones if we see that soon. Now moving on to the story progression and lore components of the chapter, story-wise. We're deep into the big conflict involving power theft, the Black Paladins, Count Saint Germain, and Vlad's plan. The enemies want Okaroon's id Cosmos power badly, even though he doesn't have Turbo Granny's power. They're rushing to force him to admit defeat to steal it via the fairy tale card mechanics. This ties back to the larger lore of these families or groups hunting supernatural abilities, with Saint Germain and Red Baron as key operators who've been pulling strings across arcs from the Kozuki knife schemes to the Shimane mess. Count Saint Germain remains the shadowy mastermind behind a ton of the power collecting ops, loaning out the Azura blades and planning the long game for ultimate paranormal dominance and whatever Don ends up being, which he ends up chasing. But tensions are boiling with the Delacroix family. We have Count Saint Germain has been outshining them, and now the Dragon Knights are making moves to snatch glory from Vlad before he can claim more. Red Baron, the flying ace and Nenra assassin, who's been Saint Germain's heavy hitter, and took the Ellen Shimane, shows up here stripped of his main powers after Vlad's crew turned on him. He's still charging in on a bike, huffing and determined. That screams he's going to prove himself again amid the infighting. We have a classic Yukino Butatsu themes for these. We have even the villains have layers of pride, schemes, and backstabbing. We also get teases of broader forces with the new Dragon Knights debuting. The Clown Dragon Knight, the Diamond Earring Gem Knight guy keeping things on mission, plus the masked eye patch and coat variants rolling deep with Hase and their tool to corner Okaroon. These fresh Black Knights members amp up the threat. Army vibes, we have masks and a clear agenda to block Saint Germain's crew from hogging the spotlight while completing the fairy tale card for Vlad. It turns out to be a faction warfare heating up inside the bigger evil organization. We also have Okaroon's power speculation, which stays strong in this chapter as well, especially with talks of Okaroon's id Cosmos. Still the prime target, even post Turbo Granny, hinting at retained or awakened hybrid potential. GG rescue setup, dinosaur chaos, the gang getting quartered by these new knights, and the Red Baron's incoming ride. Progression is pretty good with major rivalries and team-ups on the horizon. All right, lastly, we'll get into the final thoughts of the chapter that I have for this chapter 238. Pretty good in different ways. For this one, character-driven storytelling wrapped in Donadon's wild world. Okaroon's decision cements his growth and clears romantic air, at least for now, while setting up massive team battles ahead against the Dragon Knights' new faces. The pacing keeps you hooked, the character moments deliver emotional weight, and the lore teases keep the theory spinning, especially around Okaroon's evolving strength, Saint Germain versus the Delacroix power plays, and a depowered but relentless Red Baron riding in hot. Is a turbo hybrid awakening incoming to save the day? Will Momo's memories spark back? Red Baron on a bike had me smiling at the end of that chapter. That was pretty funny. But let me know what you think of those questions in the comments below whenever you have the ability to. I will be trying to continue to do chapters of Donadon weekly, so hopefully I can maintain that. If so, I'll see you in the next chapter of Donadon. All right, see ya.